Hey guys, what's going on? And welcome to my new series. Yes, yet another new series. But this time it's one that I actually intend to complete. I'm going to be doing the season challenge on F1 2012. And as you see here, I've started off in a Caterham. This season challenge is pretty much what I was, well, it's sort of what I was intending to do on F1 2011 anyway. In so much as there are 10 races, but the races aren't the ones that I would have chosen necessarily. I mean, they're all decent tracks, and in fact you can see the calendar there. It starts in Italy, then Belgium, then Great Britain, Canada, USA, Brazil, Australia, Japan, Germany, and then the final race is Abu Dhabi. So I probably would have chosen some of those races in my custom season, if you could do that. But the big thing with season challenge is that it's just a scaled down version of career basically. It's half the races, all the races are only 5 laps long, and qualifying is one shot qualifying, so you only get 1 lap. And one of the first things you have to do is choose a rival. I chose Maldonado, and I'm going straight into qualifying for Monza. So basically what you have to do, you choose a rival, and then you have 3 races to beat him, and if you beat him 2 times out of the 3 or more, then you basically take his drive. So if I was to beat Maldonado, I'd move to Williams. Here's my lap on Monza with the 1-shot qualifying, braking about 170 meters before the first corner, possibly a bit early, and then coming out of that, accelerating DRS curves, and then up towards Curva Grande, slightly in front of pole position at the moment in a Caterham, which is interesting, braking just before the bridge for this left-right chicane, and then up through the gears again before the first of the 2 Lesmos, and on the power as early as you can, and then for the second Lesmos braking about 50 meters before the start of the corner, before going on to another long straight. And now I've lost quite a bit of time to, I think it's Hamilton who's setting the pace there. This is the one thing only problem I have with the 1-shot qualifying is that the ghost car of whoever's gone fastest is quite off-putting when you're trying to concentrate on your braking zones and your turn-in points. As you see, I run a bit wide there, for example. It can be a bit off-putting, especially when you're quite close to the lap of the ghost and it's basically just ahead of you. But there I am in P19, Maldonado P13, so that's a little bit disappointing. Hamilton on pole from Alonso and Button. So like in real F1 2012, McLaren starting the season strongly. I wonder if the rest of the season on here will follow the same pattern as the season in real life, with them dropping away and cocking up many times, but it's another issue for another day, I think. So now just getting ready for the start of this race. I'm just going to take a drink quickly. So getting ready now to go onto the grid. And while this race is going on, I thought I wouldn't go on about the race because it's a 5-lap race and you can see what's going to happen, what's going on. So I thought I'd talk a bit about real F1 because today, as I'm talking to you, we had the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which was a cracker, a real cracker of a race. Hamilton started on pole from Webber, and who was third? Oh, Maldonado was third, that was it. Vettel had his grid penalty before the start of the race, which meant that he was originally meant to start third and ended up having to start from the pit lane because he didn't have enough fuel in his car after qualifying for a sample for the stewards. and that was always going to mix things up for the big championship battle that's going on between him and Alonso. And he said before the race that they geared the Red Bull to be better for overtaking, because as anyone who follows F1 will know, the Red Bull isn't the best car out there for overtaking. So yeah, that made it look like it was going to be an exciting race, and we certainly weren't disappointed. I'm a fan of Hamilton, but I think for the race, him retiring was probably the best thing that could have happened, really. Well, maybe not the absolute best thing, but it certainly spiced things up, although some of the battles were actually a bit further behind. But I think having Kimi up at the front, you know, Kimi's a good guy, I like Kimi. He's pretty popular in Formula One, so to have him win a race in a season where he's third in the championship, and he deserves to win a race considering how many people have. So yeah, that was pleasing, I think, for him to be on the top step. And then it all just went off around further back down the grid. Lots and lots of overtaking, lots and lots of little incidents, crashes. Things like Vettel losing bits of his front wing. Firstly behind Senna as he was trying to come back through the grid. And he just tagged, well, Senna overtook him going into the slow corner at the end of the first really long straight, and then Senna kind of did a half move up the inside and lost a bit of his front nose as a result, but that wasn't enough for him to go into the pits. But then when the safety car came out after the crash with Rosberg and Kartikeyan, which was pretty scary, he lost a bit more of his front wing when Ricciardo was weaving in front of him trying to warm up his tyres, and he just got a bit too close and had to take avoiding action behind him and hit the polystyrene DRS board, which was a strange incident. But then Red Bull decided that was enough to make him have to pit, so all the work he'd done trying to move up the field in the opening laps he had to do again. But then after that, it was just a crazy race. It all fell into place for Vettel because his car was clearly set up well for the circuit. He was overtaking people quite easily, and it was crazy how quickly he moved up into the points and into a good point scoring position as well. And then when everyone pitted, he was up to second place, which I would never have believed before the start of the race that he'd be in that position at any point. But unfortunately for him, he had to stop again because his option tyres weren't going to last till the end. And then he was behind Button with Alonso in second, and then another safety car. What was that safety car for, actually? I can't. Oh, of course, it was. That was Di Resta, Perez, Grosjean, and Webber's crash, which, if you haven't seen, I'd recommend you see it. It's quite a funny incident, really, especially because it involves Grosjean, who's just crashing into everything at the moment. And that crash took him out, and it took Webber out, and Perez was able to continue, but he had to pit for repairs, and then he got a stop and go penalty for his part in it, which maybe was a little bit harsh, but you know, these things happen. It's a fairly fine line between it being a racing incident and it being someone's fault. And I guess he didn't give Grosjean much space on the inside going into the corner. But I'm no steward, so I can't really pass too much judgment on that. So that safety car allowed Vettel to be right behind Button, and for Alonso to be right behind Raikkonen again for the last 10 or laps or so before the end of the race. And after the restart, Vettel was clearly quicker than Button, and It took him a few laps to overtake him, but he eventually did, which allowed him to move up into third on the podium, which was an incredible effort considering he started from the pits. And then in the last few laps, it looked for a moment like Raikkonen, who ironically just slowed up there in front of myself and Kobayashi. But yeah, it looked like Raikkonen might not win the race because Alonso was closing up on him really, really quickly towards the end. In the last few laps, it was a tense finish at the end of an interesting race. But he just about held on. I think he won it by a second or so in the end. And I think most people would be pleased that he won the race. And also that Alonso finished ahead of Vettel, so that the championship battle continues. It hasn't made too much difference to the standings. I think the gap now is 10 points between Vettel and Alonso, which is, you know, I can live with that because, to be honest, after Vettel had won 4 races in a row, it looked as though he was just going to run away with it, and that was going to be the end of the championship. So for the championship to still be not just alive, but very much alive. I mean, a Ferrari is still slightly off Red Bull's pace, but hopefully they can make some upgrades to their car and make it more competitive for the last 2 races, so it's not a formality that Vettel's going to win. So, yeah, that was the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I mean, there were other incidents. Rosberg's crash with Kartikeyan was quite a shocker, really. It's one of the worst crashes I've seen for a while. Rosberg went pretty much right over the top of Kartikeyan, which was certainly a scary incident. I mean, if you've seen the opening crash at Monza this year, it was similar to that. And yeah, that was quite a scary moment. And then there were other crashes like Webber spinning out after trying to pass Maldonado and then making Massa spin out in another interesting incident in the race today. There were so many incidents. I haven't really covered them all, but yeah, it was certainly an interesting race. Anyway, that's the end of my opening race in the season challenge. It was quite an interesting one in the end. As you can see, I finished 15th. Maldonado finished 7th, so I wasn't able to beat my rival in the first race out of the 3 that I'll be challenging him as a rival. I finished just behind him and well ahead of Kovalainen. So that's the end of episode 1. I'll see you guys for episode 2.